Reading from the Bṛhad-bhāgavatāmṛta, Book 2, Chapter 1, Text 102. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Śrī Parīkṣit uvāca, niśamya sādaraṁ tasya, vacanaṁ vyacintayat, etasya kṛta-kṛtyasya, jātā pūrṇārthatā kila. Śrī Parīkṣit said, respectfully having heard the Brahmin's words, the young cowherd thought, this person has done everything he needs to do. Indeed, his life is a complete success. The word adara is usually understood to mean respect, but it could also mean affection. With respect for the Brahmin's status as a Mathura Brahmin, and with special affinity for him as a fellow worshipper of Sri Madan Gopal, Gop Kumar heard him out. Text 102 through 108 describes Gop Kumar's thoughtful concern for the Brahmin. Excuse me. Let's have a short summary. We know that Sanatana Goswami has been given the order and empowered by Lord Chaitanya to present Swabhakti Swayam, the highest conception of devotion, which is the experience of God Himself as a devotee at the height of his devotion for Himself in terms of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And he becomes inspired, I call it samadhi bhashya, the purports that come in samadhi. You may not even find them in the scriptures, or at least the ones that are in access to us. But this incredible story of Bṛhad Parīkṣit at the end of his life, after spending 7 days hearing the Bhagavatam, spending his final hours giving a summary of the Bhagavatam to his mother. Obviously, in terms of his summary, you can't literally tell the story, but he does the summary in terms of another story, which gives the same message of the Bhagavatam, which is to understand Krishna, Brajendranandana Krishna, and to get a feel for Braja Bhakti. And he tells the story of Narada searching for his topmost devotee. And in a very brilliant and literary way, which we discussed many times, the conclusion is, it's the gopis, it's Srimati Radharani. Now, Uttara wants to hear more. She wants to hear something about the place. Now, this is my realization that I expressed this before, that a place represents a person's consciousness. So if you want to understand Braja Bhakti and Brajendranandana Krishna, we also have to understand their place, or by understanding their place, we'll understand more about this. So Uttara wants to know the place, and Bṛhad Parīkṣit becomes very excited, and he says there's many ways to explain things, but I'll explain it through a story. And he explains the story of this Brahmin, who's from Mathura, but his family settled someplace else, who is living in a particular place where Devi is worshipped, Kamakya, I think his name. And he has that simple faith, and in a dream, she gives him a mantra, and it happens to be the Gopal mantra. And it inspires him in spirituality, so he begins to search. When you begin to search, you're looking for the sadhya, what is the goal, and what's the practice to attain it. You have some spiritual sense, and his search ultimately carries him to Brahman. And there's something very mystical going on, because Lord Shiva and Devi, and even the deity of the mantra, keep on appearing to him, pushing him forward towards Vrindavan. And we come to a very, very interesting point, which I've been meditating a lot, that there's an influence, spiritual objects have an influence independent of an understanding of them. But when you have an understanding of them, it opens up your consciousness to experience it more. Our consciousness filters our experiences. But somehow or other, by his innocence, it's having tremendous effect on him. But not as deep as he can go, and not as direct as he can go. And he becomes influenced by different things and becomes sidetracked in one sense, but somehow or other, transcendence is giving him faith. I told once that one sadhu told me that when you're not qualified on the corporal or bodily platform to directly experience transcendence, God or his pure devotees may meet you on the subtle platform in dreams. So there is that aspect of the transcendental platform wanting to help you. So somehow or other, this Brahmin, even though right now he's in kind of an ignorance, and he's confused, and he's in anxiety, because he has a spiritual feeling, but he wants to know. And I told that story of Ayendra when Prabhu, who is desperately wanting to understand his relationship with Krishna, desperately wanting to understand his relationship with Krishna. And he was in anxiety. He definitely was moving forward in devotional service, but he wanted to get to the conclusion. This Brahmin had these incredible feelings, even he was chanting so sincerely by his faith in Devi, who gave him the mantra, that he was having visions of the mantra. He was seeing the roop of the mantra. He's even seeing the lila of the mantra. So he winds up in Vrindavan and eventually gets to Keshi God. At that time, it's a forest. He hears some crying, and he meets this cowherd boy, Gop Kumar. And somehow or other, This Gop Kumar, we find out in the purports, he's also been directed by transcendence. This concept of God trying to help us by inspiring us in the heart, by sending the right people, by moving the world around us to give various experiences. That's what's happening. That's what's happening to all of us until we surrender. And you can't surrender in the past. You can't surrender in the future. You have to surrender now. And we're struggling to open that door to bhakti. To open that door to bhakti, which is that kind of surrender. So somehow or other, he recognizes first he thinks it's his own mantra because it's a cowherd boy and his mantra is Madan Gopal, protector of the cows. But then he realizes it's not, but he somehow has an affection and the presence of this cowherd boy gives him faith. And what in that cowherd boy, and what to speak, it says the cowherd boy is very hospitable to him and is very respectful to him. But he asked this cowherd boy, deliver me. By mercy, I've met you. Deliver me. My life is worthless. I live only by the mercy of Lord Madhava and Lord Shiva and his wife. And I do what they said, but I don't have any idea what the result of this activity, what I'm doing. I have a sense of it. I know the goal of this and how I achieve it. But I'm doing it because I have respect, simple-hearted respect for Devi. Kamakya. So, now tell me. And Gop Kumar hears the Brahman's words and he thinks, kṛta-kṛtyasya, jātā. He's doing everything. He's chanting the mantra with such humility. Pūrṇārthatā, kila, and indeed, his life is success. So it's something in devotion that if you're sincere in your devotion, you almost get credit for completing it. Hridayānanda Maharaj, a little bit of a genius, gave that example that if someone jumps off a building, temporarily he's going up, but as soon as he jumps, everybody say he's fallen. They can see the result. So for one who's sincere, and therefore we don't so much judge a devotee by their past, we don't judge a devotee so much by the present, we judge them by the future. It's glorious. They may be struggling, but we can see their sincerity. So now Gop Kumar is going to express some concern. Kevalam tat padamboja sakshad iksha vishishyate tajapir hate nasikim kintu tan nama kirtane. All that remains for him to achieve is to see directly the lotus feet of the Lord. He needs to become attached not so much to solitary chanting, japa, but to the Sankirtan of his names. Ajanu Lambita Bujo Kavitka Ajanu Lambito Bujo Kanikavitaro Sankirtanite, the picture of Lord Chaitanya is the father of Sankirtan. So Sankirtan is the son of Lord Chaitanya. And it has a special potency. Now, I did write that article, and you can look at my website, why I explain, although Sankirtan is better than jātā, why we do chant jātā. I explain that very clearly. But this congregational chanting, just like we did that program at Champakamala's place, and Śrī Parīkṣit and the Kinchin who were doing kirtan, some of the best in the world. And what a retreat, what a treat. But all the devotees, their eyes were closed. They were chewing the holy name, chanting with such taste. I'm seeing this late, and it's so pleasing to me. The previous week, I think we did the program at Jai Shri Radha and Gopkishore, and Raja was chanting, and Jack was chanting, and the devotees were just eyes closed. It gives special feelings of bliss. So this is recommended. When received by Pancharatrika initiation in a Vaishnava Sampradaya, Vishnu mantras deliver the chanter from illusion and provide him liberation and entrance into the divine life of devotional service. But the highest standard of pure love of God is obtained not by Pancharatrika Vidhi, but by the Bhagavad Vidhi of Nam Sankirtan, worship of Krishna's names without material motive. So Sankirtan could mean congregational. Sankirtan means complete, when you chant in a pure way. So here, it's being compared to the Pancharatrika mantras. We get those in the second initiation. And they provide liberation and entrance. But the highest love of Godhead is by the holy name, chanted without motive. So you have like a, when you get second initiation, it can be described something like this. You get, like first you start to chant the holy name, and then you begin to chant. You can, by the holy name, you become qualified for your Diksha mantras. And then within the Diksha mantras, then there's the holy name. In other words, by the holy name, you become qualified for the Diksha mantras, and by the Gayatri mantras, then you become qualified for the chanting the pure name of Krishna. So it's helped you to chant the pure name of Krishna. And that's what gives you the highest standard of prema. The Pragjyotish poor Brahmin had been chanting the 10-syllable Gopal mantra for some time with good effect, but only after he heard the Shuddhanam from Gop Kumar was he able to chant the same names of Gopal in the perfect consciousness of Sankirtan. So here Sankirtan is referred to complete chanting when it's done without motive, without devotion, with devotion. A fenceless sankirtan with concentrated attention naturally develops into spontaneous attraction to Krishna and his loving service. Certainly no means of perfection is superior to the worship of Sriman Madan Gopal's lotus feet. That worship yields results far beyond what one could expect. It should be performed mainly through Nam Sankirtan, along with reverence and affection for the many places of Gopal's pastimes, places one should regularly visit. Vrindavan, Govardhan is so important to visit these holy places and chant the holy name. And if you can't go there physically, you should go there in your mind. Srimat Madan Gopal Padambu Jopasanat. No means Param Nam Sankirtan Prayat. No means beyond Nam Sankirtan. And when chanted with faith and affection, and you visit the places, the lila stalis that have some shakti or potency. I don't like to read this verse because I'm so happy and satisfied in my bhajan kutir in New Jersey. Very peaceful, all facilities provided. But now, getting on the next plane and going to Govardhan. Purport, how then had the Brahmin already made so much spiritual advancement? He had done so by worshiping Sri Krishna, although regularly. He had been worshiping without the complete faith and understanding that come only from the special mercy of Krishna's pure devotees. But any contact with Krishna, the supreme goal of all existence, assures absolute perfection, and so does also contact with his names. For hearing and chanting of his names is the supreme method for attaining Krishna prema. Even offensive chanting, if continued long enough, will free one from disqualifications. And even namabhas, offenseless chanting without real attachment, will quickly lead to liberation and the rise of transcendental attachment and taste. So we have to sit and we have to chant the names with concentration, even if it's a struggle. The mind is more difficult to control than the raging wind, but it's possible by constant practice and detachment. So we have to chant. Allen Ginsberg came to see Prabhupada after 10 years. And after he left, one of the devotees answered that he seems nicer. Prabhupada said, yes, even Nam Aparad for so many years. Thus, for spiritual upliftment, there is no better practice than the worship of the divine lotus feet of Madan Gopal. In this verse, his feet are described as Shriman, indicate they fully possess all types of wealth and splendor. They have potency to satisfy all of the heartfelt desires of a devotee and to delight him in ways unanticipated by his conscious and even subconscious desires. The principal activity of this worship is Sankirtan, chanting out loud a melodious song the Lord's names like Krishna, Govinda, and Gopal. Śrī Parīkṣit further suggests that the effects of Harinam Sankirtan are enhanced by visiting the sacred places in Vrajabhumi where Krishna enjoyed pastimes with the Gopas and Gopis. As much as other obligations in devotional service allow, Vaishnavas should wander about these places and see them all with their own eyes. If they do this with love and respect, their Nam Bhajan will soon bear fruit. I can't wait to go back to Vrindavan. What can I say? This purport is giving me endless pain. feel I wasted 6 months there. Why wasn't I more serious? And actually speaking, we should all sing every day. That initially was the program because Prabhupada would have devotees go to the morning and evening programs. So there was always kirtan. When people lived in the temple, there was kirtan morning, there was kirtan evening. In Vrindavan, he wanted the devotees to go 3 times a day. Sanjata prema kasmach chatur varga vidam bakat tatpadabja Śrī Parīkṣit anyat sadhyam nakinchana. There is no other final goal than that in which pure love of Godhead appears, mocking the 4 lesser aims of life and bringing the Lord's lotus feet under one's control. Purport. In comparison to Krishna prema, the 4 goals of religiosity, economic development, sense gratification, and liberation appear only significant. Only prema bhakti can bring the Supreme Personality of Godhead under control. Śrī Krishna-katha, Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. One of the symptoms of practice, or one of the symptoms of performing devotional service at the level of prema, Śrī Krishna-katha. It even brings Krishna under control. If you love, you are controlled. That's what love means. It's not codependence. You have to have the right object of love. When you love, you're under control. Because you're ruled by another person's desire. If you want to please someone, and you want to please someone intensely, you are ruled by their desires. You are captured. So when you love Krishna, and he reciprocates by love for you, then you bring him under control. Iti bodhayitam chasya sarva samshaya nodinam savritam eva nikalam nunam pratipadaye. To bring him to this realization, first, I must tell him my own history in full. This will clear away all my doubts. So what are we having here? We're having Sanatana Goswami telling the story of Jaimini Rishi, telling the story of Bṛhad-bhāgavatāmṛta, telling the story of Bṛhad-bhāgavatāmṛta, telling the story of Bṛhad-bhāgavatāmṛta, telling the story of Bṛhad-bhāgavatāmṛta. Within that story, we have Bṛhad-bhāgavatāmṛta tell another story to Uttara's question about this. He's telling to Uttara's question about the highest place, a story of this Pragyatishta Brahmin who meets Gop Kumar, who's now going to tell his own story. So it's a story within a story. So I'll tell my own story. The Brahmin needs to be informed that Krishna is the goal of his endeavors and that Nam Sankirtan is the means to achieve Krishna. But if Gop Kumar were to say this from the start, the Brahmin, his mind ruled by doubts and misconceptions, may not grasp the full import of the advice. Therefore, to win the Brahman's trust, Gopkumar first needs to describe his own experiences, beginning from when he also received the same Gopal mantra and continuing up to the present moment. This will drive away the Brahman's doubts and wrong ideas. Will also allow the Brahmin to drink the nectar of Śrī Bhāgavatāmṛta, which will render his heart pure enough to assimilate the transcendental knowledge he requires. In fact, that knowledge should manifest itself automatically, even without needing to be explicitly stated. In other words, he'll just become inspired by this story without even directly telling him. And again, I forgot where else it is, but this is not, one generally doesn't talk about himself, with the exception if your story can benefit others. Swayam, the last verse of his concerns. Swayameva swamahatmyam katyateyan nan tatsatam samattam syat tapyasya nanyanaditam bhave. Describing one's own glories is disapproved by spiritual authorities, but nothing else I could tell will bring about his good fortune. These purports are written so nicely I can read them. As the saying goes, swa prashamsa dhruva mrityu. Self-praise is as good as death. At the same time, Gopkumar understood that nothing but his own story will dispel the Brahman's doubts and give him tattva gyan. Because Gopkumar used his mystic power to describe the Brahman's past, the Brahman already inclined to believe him. There's something called swashastra with breathing that one could read minds. Because Gopkumar used his mystic power to describe the Brahman's past, the Brahman is already inclined to believe him. So Gopkumar should not hesitate to tell his own story and thereby make the Brahmin fortunate. Since his own story is very similar to that of the Brahmin and will drive away his doubts, especially if your lived experience is the same, just like they have these recovery groups. So people tell their stories, and it has a lot of potency for people who have the same story. But the people who are leading the group and telling the story, their story has the happy ending of recovery. So maybe someone who's coming to recovery, hearing that, he identifies with that. So this is very natural. Our own personal story, when it has a lived experience similar to another person, can be very beneficial. Sri Radha's order will then quickly be carried out, and what ordinarily have been a breach of etiquette will be perfectly acceptable behavior. Evam vanischitya mahanubhavo gopatmajosav avadhapya brikbram atmanubhutam gatatum pravrittha pūrṇārthatā yadvad rishi paranam. Thus the saintly son of the cowherds made up his mind. He asked the Brahmin for attention and began to speak about his own life. Just as a sage, versed in the Puranas, would speak an epic. Purport: Gopkumar spoke with great authority, although he is just a young herdsman. Anyone listening to him would think he was an ancient speaker of the Puranas, like Romaharshana Sutta or his son Ugrashrava, or a seer of Vedic mantras like Rishi Vamanadev. His narrations was as authoritative as the Puranas and fully in accord with the Shastra. The sage Devala has defined the characteristic of a rishi. Rishi is one whose semen flows upward, who is fierce in observing austere vows, who eats moderately, controls his senses, is able to curse and bless, and adheres firmly to the truth. Sri Gopkumar uvāca atrētihasya bhavo vidyante tapi katyate sabritam evanusmitya mohadavapishang sangatam. Gopkumar said, there are many historical accounts relevant to this topic, but I'm going to tell you my own story, including recollections of what occurred at times when I was bewildered by ecstasy and other distractions. Purport, there are many ancient historical accounts about what certain people did and said to one another that may be useful in explaining how to determine the best goal of life and the means to achieve it. These accounts are called itihasas, a text that consists of narrations of past events and includes instructions about religiosity, economic development, sense gratification, liberation is called itihasa. Gopkumar's plan, however, is to tell his own history instead of all forms of evidence for establishing the truth. Experience of one's own life is the strongest. Thus, when Gopkumar frankly reveals the events of his life, the Brahmin should be persuaded of the higher truth that Gopkumar has grasped. On occasions, Gopkumar was unaware of what was going around him because the overflowing of his love of the Supreme disturbed his external perception. Even so, by virtue of his advanced realization, he can now recollect even the details of events when he was unconscious when they occurred. Many of these personal events are also too confidential to discuss freely in public, and Gopkumar is somewhat embarrassed to mention them. He feels obliged, however, to do anything he can to help enlighten the Brahmin. As Gopkumar will tell the Brahmin in the last chapter of the book, just see, I have told you everything that happened to me and everything done by the Lord and his devotees, even that which is extremely confidential. Bṛhad-bhāgavatāmṛta 247. Gopala vritir vaishyasya govardhan nivasina putroham idriso bala puragas charanam naja. I am the son of a Vaishya of Govardhan who made his living as a cowherd. As a young boy of that community, I used to tend my own cows. Tasmin Govardhane Krishna Tire Vrindavanit Vita Matare Mandale Bale Saman Vipra Varastita. O best of the learned Brahmins, I stayed in the company of other boys there at Govardhan, here in Vrindavan, on the banks of the Jamuna, and at various other places in the district of Mathura. Purport. Now Gopkumar begins his story, which will continue till the end of the 6th chapter. He was born in a Vaishya community in a family of cowherds. Many scriptures, including Śrīmad Bhāgavatāmṛta 10:24-21, describe that Vaishyas may engage in 4 occupations: trade, banking, farming, and cow protection. Rishi Baniya Go Raksha Kusinam Cha. As the history unfolds, we shall find that although a long time has passed since Gopkumar was an innocent boy at Govardhan, he is not aged at all. As explained, this was due to a blessing by his spiritual master. Quote, by the potency of this mantra, may you live a long time. May you always have the form of a cowherd boy. and may you develop the right mentality for tasting the mantra's fruit. Bṛhad-bhāgavatāmṛta 2.1.199. Gop Kumar's tending a herd of cows means that his family was relatively well-to-do and independent. In the course of doing his work, he wandered over the area within the 20 yojana circumference of Mathura Mandal. Among the places he used for cowherding, his special favorites were Govardhan, the forest of Vrindavan, and the shore of the Jamuna. Sometimes he went to other locations in the Dham, like Mahavan. But according to one's transcendental opinion, Vrajabhumi consists of nothing but Govardhan, Vrindavan, and the Jamuna. Since these three places pervade the entire Dham. In any case, there is no place outside Vrajadham where a cowherd can get real benefit from his occupation. Gop Kumar addressed his new student by saying, "O best of learned brahmanas," because the student hails from the Brahmin community of Mathura. Okay. One more verse for today. That's my inspiration. Vanamadye chapashyamo nityam ekam dvajotamam divyamurtim varakdyadyam paryatantam mitastata. In the forest, we regularly saw a first-class Brahmin wandering from place to place. He was very announced, and his body appeared like that of a god. He was always chanting the glories of Krishna. Sometimes he sang, sometimes he danced, sometimes absorbed in meditation, he chanted the mantra himself, and sometimes he gave himself to laughter. Sometimes he shouted or loudly sobbed, or stumbled and fell to the ground, or rolled about on the ground like a madman. Sometimes he fell unconscious and lay still like a corpse, the flood of his mucus, saliva, and tears turning the dust on the cow path into mud. Out of curiosity, we cowherd boys would often come look at him. But when he saw us in front of him, he would bow down to us with devotion. He would heartily embrace us and affectionately cover us with kisses, as if we were his best friends. He was unable to give up our company. He was pleased with my services. So anyway, like giving gifts of milk products. One day, meeting me on the shore of the Jamuna, he embraced me and spoke in this way: "My dear child, if you want to fulfill all your desires, please bathe at Keshi Ghat, and then accept from me this mercy of the Lord of the universe." Then after I bathed, he imparted to me the same mantra you were chanting. Although he is fully satisfied in himself and indifferent to material things, he was the crest jewel of all compassionate souls. He was about to explain the method of worshiping the mantra, but as soon as he mentioned the object of meditation, he was overcome by pure love of Godhead, became confused, and started crying like a woman separated from her lover. When he regained normal consciousness, I was afraid to ask him. He stood up and went away distressed. After that, he was nowhere to be found. I had no idea what this mantra was that I had received and what fruit its chanting would hear, or even how the mantra was to be practiced. Simply out of respect for the Brahman's words, I constantly murmured this mantra in a secluded place, unseen by others. I chanted it just out of curiosity. By the influence of that great person, even such aimless chanting purified my mind, and I developed faith in the mantra. Contemplating my Guru's words, I understood the mantra to be the means for achieving the Lord of the universe. Thus I became satisfied and absorbed in chanting. So that'll be it for today. We just read ahead some verses. Great. Jamuna Jaya, you're there? You can share with us first.
Hare Krishna Rise, thank you. Such a good ramp up to Gopur Kumbal coming and telling us all these things. But the line that really stood out to me today is, "Self-praise is as good as death." That just, man,
Oh,
that's boom. That kind of says it all. I was really so
yeah,
taken with that.
that's heavy. But he had to do it. Wow, thanks. That's great, George.
Self-praise is good as death. That might be a button.
Whoa. Okay, okay. All right, Gail.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hi, Bo.
Yeah, I was just thinking, the fact that Gopkumar was trying to inspire the Brahmin with his story, it just reminded me of, didn't Narada Muni do the same thing with, I don't remember who, he was telling his story to inspire who, because somebody who was following a parallel.
Yeah, I can't recall it right now, but that seems to be a principle.
Yeah.
Just like Radhanath Swami was so reluctant to write his book.
Yes.
But God brothers, sometimes we do things that can give us praise, can give us control, and therefore we are hesitant to do them. But on the order of, or wishes of the Vaishnavas, then sometimes we have to do. And you see, like Radhanath Swami's story was really impactful for so many people. Yeah.
Oh. And Maharaj, what was the purpose of, the context of why, I think it was, anyway, in the commentary, so much depth was gone into about the Vaishya, they go into banking, farming. What was the context for that?
The context is that he was a Vaishya. He was from, it said that he was from a wealthy and well-do Vaishya family. And
Gopkumar.
yeah, and in any society, there's a class of people that are 10% who produce 90% of the wealth. That's why communism always fails. Because when you destroy the profit motive for that class, then there's not enough for anybody. And of course, it also fails if in capitalistic society the wealth disparity becomes too great, then the people on the bottom will tear it all down. So there has to be a healthy balance between a profit motive, and tempering its exploitation.
But I'm just wondering, how is this explanation?
Because he's a Vaishya.
The Brahmin is a Vaishya.
No, Gopkumar.
Yeah. So how is going into depth about his position going to help the Brahmin?
That was in the purport, wasn't it?
How is it? I mean,
Wait, let me get to this. Let me get to the place.
Yeah, the relevance between that and to the Brahmin,
I'm getting to the place, okay? So he says, I'm the son of a Vaishya who made his living as a cowherd boy. And then it says he was born in a Vaishya community in a family of cowherd boys. Many scriptures and the Bhagavatāmṛta describe the Vaishyas, and then quotes from the Gita, what their 4 occupations were. I don't know. The purport is just very short. Gopkumar is just explaining who he is. That's all.
Mm. Oh, okay.
Okay. Okay, anybody else have a reflection, a question, or just likes to say hello?
Hare Krishna, Gurudev.
Jai Shri Radhe, Haribo. Good.
I like the explanation of how devotee, when he's chanting holy names, eventually will be given Gayatri mantra that will help him to chant the pure names.
Okay.
Because I knew always that second initiation is important, but now I have a very clear reason why.
Okay, we'll have to discuss that. Champak found me practically a direct flight
That's wonderful.
to Russia. It only stops for 1.5 hours. So the whole thing is 13 hours
That's great.
by Air Serbia, which is 3-star airline, which is same as American airline. The only thing about that is that the economy class somehow is very expensive, almost as expensive as the business class. So that's the only thing. But anyway, there are word that people are discussing things and deals to be made, but if I can get a ticket now, I'm going to get it. Okay, Haribo, Jai Shri Radha.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Okay, anybody else say hello?
Hare Krishna Garaj, it's Lal Govinda.
And Bṛhad, thank you for class.
Thanks for class.
Haribo, Jai.
As well.
Look how I want to show you. That's my barber. How nicely he shaved me. He comes, and then his wife cooks this beautiful feast.
Slaves away.
What's that?
Slaves away for
It
it.
was great. It was eggplant, chickpeas, right?
And spinach sabji, yeah.
And then another sabji with cashew sauce, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then dal rice, right?
Yep.
And then there were these incredible chocolate little pies.
Yeah.
You let him make the sweets, so let him describe. How do you make those sweets, Lal?
It's just silken tofu, a half a cup of peanut butter, and a half a cup of dark chocolate chips. And you mix them up and put them in little graham cracker pie crusts, and then refrigerate them.
Oh, the painstaking life. I don't eat them. Well, I ate then, but after that, I told you you can eat them all. It's tempting. It's tempting. Okay.
Thanks, Maharaj.
Haribo.
Okay. Anybody else? Haribo. We have so much fun. Okay. Anybody else like to say hello? Okay.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, this is Krishna-katha. Thank you so much for the class. I also I'm very thankful for you that you explained so clearly how Maha Mantra purifies us for the Gayatri and Gayatri for pure Maha Mantra. It's so exact.
I got that from the book His Guru and His Grace by Bhakti Rakshaka Sridhar Maharaj. It's a very good book. Okay, thank you. And I'll see you in your country. Of course, I'm not going there to preach. I'm just going to see the different tours. Okay.
Yes, great. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else like to say hello? I'm just looking at all the names here of the people.
Thanks for class, Maharaj. See you back.
Yvette, very nice. Thank you. Good to see you.
Thank you.
Okay.
See you soon. Hare Krishna.
Very good. Okay. Anybody else? Okay. Hare Krishna, thank you all for coming. And we'll see you on Sunday.